So I just watched The Spark, and some episodes are too good and too important to make a joke in the cold opening. Also known as the longest look at a newborn Transformer we'll ever get, this focuses on another stasis pod. This time we get to it nice and early, and the struggle here is trying to keep it alive long enough for Rhinox to get its systems operational and to find something for the pod to scan, all while Predacons try to get the pod for themselves. I love protoform episodes, especially ones like this where it puts so much importance on what the pod is and what it means to each side. Again, it's saving, to the Maximals, it's saving a comrade. To the Predacons, it's about gaining a numbers advantage. Or in the case of some Predacons, trying to gain a numbers advantage against Megatron. Either way, the protoform here feels incredibly important because of everything that goes on. Everything they can do to let this protoform survive is attempted. They sacrifice their own parts. They put their own processors on the line to run the protoform systems. Rhinox alone goes through so much, and he's struggling so hard to keep this protoform alive. It really makes you feel for it before we even have a face for it. I think that's the really impressive part of this episode. It's we have so much investment in Airazor before she's even born because of what they're going through to save her. And a lot of this means that we finally get a good episode for Rhinox that actually shows who he is. It took 15 episodes, but we finally got here. Rhinox has an episode all to himself. Don't hold your breath waiting for the Scorponok episode. You will suffocate. But now we have a actual Rhinox episode, and that is wonderful. We get to see a little bit of his spiritual side, mostly in a dream sequence, but it does pan out for the rest of his characterization later on. And we see his determination and just the lengths he's willing to go through to save a fellow Maximal, which is awesome to see. I love how I love how his first thought is to disable his weapons to stay in robot mode as long as possible, even in Pred territory. He's in the most dangerous place he can be, and he's willing to turn off his weapons to save the protoform. That's a really big detail, I feel. Let's see. Before we get into Airazor herself, let's hit a few other things in this episode. This is the first sign of Tarantulas wanting a stasis pod for himself. He's visibly annoyed when Megatron interrupts him identifying the protoform and trying to lock down his location. And he's even more upset when Megatron refuses to allow him to go on the mission to retrieve it. They start throwing barbs at each other, which is just the first sign of the dissension between Megatron and Tarantulas. Not that Megatron has any trust in anyone on his team outside of maybe Scorponok and maybe Waspinator. Waspinator, I think, is a little bit too dumb to pose a coup. It's the beginning of showing Megatron's distrust in Tarantulas, which is... It's going to lead places. It's going to lead to some very good places. For now, just getting started. It's the first time we got to see a little bit of interaction between Cheetor and Tigatron properly. Big cat, little cat started here. Cheetor himself in this episode I thought was doing a lot better. He actually shows a little more maturity, willing to give up his parts to help the protoform survive, willing to go into battle with no protection against energon fields. As well as just, oh man, he actually, when he contacts Tigatron about the stasis pod, he actually requests backup. Remember, the last time we saw Cheetor have something to do, he charged into it head first. So now that it actually is asking for backup and letting Tigatron know what he's about to do before he does it, that alone shows that he is starting to grow, which is an awesome thing to see. Again, little touches. This is also the second time in this series so far Cheetor has had a prophetic dream. Now, it's not that they had Beast Machines in mind when they created this series, But it is interesting to me that it kind of plays into his role later on as the successor to Primal with the Oracle. I don't think it's not even, I don't even think the last prophetic dream we get out of Cheetor. I think we still have more to go. Just for some weird reason that just became a character quirk of his. The whole, yeah. Speaking of the dream, I guess we have to go into the dream sequence itself because this is so important. So it's a dream sequence, but Rhinox gives us an explanation for the spark. And I'm glad they gave it to us in a dream sequence because it really wouldn't make sense for the viewer to learn about it by one Transformer telling another Transformer about sparks. This way it didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like heavy-handed or anything because it never makes sense. It's like if you told somebody else what a heart was. You told another human being what a heart was in great detail and why it keeps you alive. And but no, no, I know all this. Getting in a dream sequence avoids all that. So that's actually good. That is actually a good way to handle it and give the explanation to the viewer. And again, it is, I made a video just for the most important episodes in Transformer history. This is one of them because of this part. The spark not only went on to feature in every Transformer fiction since, but has actually retroactively become part of G1 as well. That's how important this element of the story is. And this has nothing to do with selling toys. This has everything to do with world building. And I love how much world building Beast Wars does, this being one of the most important pieces of it. We have another in this episode with a little minor one, but I always like to point it out. When Airazor gets scanned, or starts trying to scan for things, it states that there's no compatible life form available, which always felt like to me like it means that a protoform Transformer has a limit to what they can actually turn into for an alt mode. If you're designed as a flyer, you can't become a boat. If you're designed to be if you're designed to be like an animal, you can't be a toaster, or whatever. There's limitations. I hated in the movies where like Frenzy could turn into a radio or a cell phone. I don't like when Transformers just turn into anything because it feels like it's too open. I love this establishment of there's a certain design in mind for Transformers before they're born. Their superstructure can only turn into so much. Let's see. Tigatron got a little bit of time to show off here. Froze Scorponok in mid-transformation. That's a faux pas. Not allowed to do that. Black Arachnia had an awesome showing in this one. Not only her defiance of Megatron's authority, but just her combat prowess as well. If it wasn't for Cheetor being a little bit more clever in the moment, she would have beaten both of the cats in this episode. She was really impressive. And so was Airazor. Airazor had an awesome introduction. I'd say better than Tigatron's by far. Some battling in beast mode, some really good fighting in robot mode. I love the aerial fight between her and Pterosaur. Love it. And yeah, she's just so effectively scrapped Pterosaur as well. I will say, I love how Beast Wars handles its female cast members. It doesn't treat them like they're made of glass, or they don't make them damsels in distress. They are fighters, they are warriors, just as much as the guys are. And Black Arachnia and Airazor both show in this episode. I would not want to fight either one of them, even if I was a Transformer. And they make it very clear they are both very good fighters. And I love that. I love the portrayal of the girls in Beast Wars. So all this taken into account, should be no surprise, this is a masterful episode. Absolutely vital to the Transformers mythos, past and future. And just incredibly strong episode, both in how important they made Airazor feel, all the struggling Rhinox did to save her, all the scheming in the Predacon side. Everything in this episode worked. No complaints for me whatsoever. This episode is brilliant. All right, thank you once again for joining me here on an episode review. Stay tuned. The next one is right around the corner, and it's the start of a two-parter. We'll see how I handle that. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.